Hello, can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Wave your hands if you can hear me. Hello, my name is Noah Sanders. I'm the host and curator of this thing called The Racket. This is our Christmas setup. It's a little bit different, The Racket. And tonight is a very special evening because we are collaborating with the San Franciscan magazine, who we're going to introduce in just a brief moment. Tonight is called A San Franciscan Racket because we're very clever here at The Racket. Before I get started, though, I just want to say thank you so much to Lauren C. Johnson. She is the moderator for this evening. She's keeping the trolls at bay. She's keeping you muted. She's allowing us to do all this stuff without having to worry about horrible people doing horrible things. So thank you, Lauren C. Johnson. It is always a pleasure to have you here. Just quickly, The Racket is a reading series that turned into a journal, that turned into a website, that turned into a sort of a shit show. But the reading series has always been the heart of it. And this is what we're doing this evening, A San Franciscan Racket. And I'm just going to introduce Erica. So this is Erica from the San Franciscan.
Hi there. Thanks, Noah. So thanks so much for coming to spend some time with us on this cozy Thursday night. My name's Erica, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the San Franciscan. And if you don't know about us, we're an independent print magazine, and we're focused on telling local stories and celebrating the rich creative culture of San Francisco and the Bay Area. Let's see here. We just published our third issue. Here it is. And there's a ton of good stuff in here. Local journalism, profiles, beautiful essays, fiction, poetry, locally themed crossword. And of course, there's a fantastic interview with Grant Faulkner, written by Jane Martin in this issue, as well as featured flash stories from each author. And a couple more of tonight's readers will be gracing the pages of future issues as well. So we are just really excited to be teaming up with The Racket and Noah to share a few moments of creativity and community. I just love the space that Noah has created with The Racket, and it's been such a joy to work together putting on this event. And it's really what the San Franciscan is all about. So we're really excited, and thanks for coming tonight.
Absolutely. And you should go. You can find the San Franciscan at like Alley Cat Books, Green Apple Books, Dog Eared Books. Go. They have a bunch of copies, though they do sell out. It's a print magazine. You can hold it in your grubby fingers and flip pages. It's like a new thing they're doing, the kids these days. That said, what we're here for tonight, though, is to hear a bunch of people read amazing writing. We have 8 fantastic readers, and we're just going to jump right into it. Before we do, though, we don't do traditional bios here. All of these people have written great things, and you can actually go online, because what else do we have to do these days, and find the works that they've written and read those things. And after the show, you should totally do this. Instead, we just like to get a little more writing out of them if we can, so we ask them a bio prompt. And then they respond to that. We're going to read that as their introduction. The bio prompt this time is, what was your first memory of the Bay Area, as it is a San Franciscan Racket. I'm going to let Erica introduce the first reader.
All right, first up we have Jacqueline Doyle. Jacqueline says, the first Bay Area literary event I remember attending was Literary Death Match in San Francisco, back when my friend Aaliyah Bowles was running it. I was blown away by the enormous crowd and raucous atmosphere. It was nothing like the staid readings at universities that I was used to. They actually used super soakers to penalize writers who couldn't manage to stay within their time limit. All right, Jackie, take it away.
Okay, thanks. I want to say thanks to Erica and Noah for hosting this event, and to the San Franciscan for inviting me, and all of you for being here on a Thursday night. I'm going to read a flash fiction that was long listed in the Wigleaf Top 50 Very Short Fictions this year. It was inspired by the Magritte exhibit at SF MoMA, which I really miss going to, and accepted at Pithead Chapel by the wonderful San Francisco writer and editor Kim McGowan. And I see Lynn Mundell is here tonight, and she was one of my beta readers in an online writing group that sometimes meets. It's called The Lost Umbrella. She'd hoped if she bought an expensive umbrella, she might keep closer track of it. It wasn't one of her usual folding umbrellas. It was a full-sized umbrella with a curved wood handle. Oversized even, inconvenient in restaurants where she didn't know how to store it at the table and didn't want to leave it at the door, afraid it would be stolen. It was an enviable umbrella, the kind of umbrella that anyone would covet. The outside was black, but the inside showed a bright blue sky with puffy white clouds. When she'd seen it at the SF MoMA gift shop for the Magritte exhibition, she'd immediately wanted it, but it cost $55. She didn't need another umbrella, and she didn't want to seem extravagant in front of Paul, who'd complained about his ex-wife's spending. So she didn't purchase the umbrella until later, months after she and Paul had broken up, when she made a special trip to the museum just to buy it. The umbrella reminded her of Paul, who'd also cost her a lot, and it didn't because she purchased it herself after all. She was taking care of herself, providing her own shelter from the elements, making her own fair weather, or trying to. They'd had fun that day, posing in front of the mirrored exhibit that landed them inside of one of Magritte's paintings. Mysterious landscapes, dark streets under daytime skies, ordinary objects, an apple, a bowler hat, a glass of water balancing on an umbrella, imbued with the extraordinary. They joked about the pipe with the caption, "Ceci n'est pas une pipe." This is not a pipe. "Ceci n'est pas une robe," he said later as he unzipped her black dress and they fell onto his bed. Nothing was what it appeared. Not their relationship either, since she'd been so sure he loved her and that things were over between him and his wife, when they weren't, not at all, and now he'd moved back in with her. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm sorry." They were sitting outdoors at a cafe on Valencia when he told her, not a cloud in the sky. She'd been thinking he was impossibly handsome in his rumpled blue shirt and leather jacket, only half listening, and then he'd said it, "I'm sorry." It was chilly. She was shivering in her thin sweater, and there was nothing she could say. She laughed. San Francisco is always so fucking cold. She gulped her espresso and stood, knees trembling, steadying herself for a moment on the metal table. There was no point in begging him to change his mind. She could tell by the shuddered look on his face that it was too late for that. Better to leave with a brave smile and an airy wave. It was a role she'd learned to play, the independent woman, less needy and neurotic than his wife. She hasn't seen him since, but she's always afraid she's going to run into him at a movie or museum or restaurant. "Ceci n'est pas une girlfriend," he might say to his wife, who'd be clinging to his arm. Even though she's exactly what she looks like, 30-something and perpetually single, younger than his wife, but not so young, the jilted girlfriend who cried for weeks, the one who couldn't get out of bed, who still covets another woman's husband. And his wife will know without being told and stare with narrowed eyes. There was a painting of a wooden door with a large black hole in it that she stood in front of for a long time at the exhibit. She's having a hard time remembering exactly what it looked like, since it unlocked frightening images in her dreams, proliferating doors that opened into utter darkness, thresholds she's afraid to cross, into rooms where she's alone and lost, groping her way in the dark. And behind one of those doors, lost like she knew it would be, is her fucking blue sky umbrella. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You can find Jacqueline's work at Black Lawrence Press. The link is in the chat. Thank you so much. And next up, we have Wesley Cohen. Wesley writes in terms of first Bay Area memory. "I remember riding into the Steinhardt Aquarium on the tall shoulders of my best friend, looking down through the seahorse railing at Claude the alligator and trying to establish if he was real." Please welcome Wesley Cohen.
Thank you, Noah. Thanks, Erica. It's lovely to meet you. This is a fragment of something I've sort of been playing around with The Hanging Man. My parents found him at a flea market and had to have him. Me and my sisters took turns trying to convince them he was creepy. But he's smiling, my mom said. He's happy. He dangled from the orange tree 3 feet long. Small wind chimes hung from his bare feet and hummed in the breeze. His driftwood face was frozen in a grimace. The Hanging Man joined a small army of yard fixtures at my parents' house. There were the ceramic wind chimes from Peru, the metal sun hammered from an oil drum in Jamaica, smiling over the potting bench. There was a length of chipping yellow fence leaned against the back wall, with fingers of bean shoots weaving through it. And of course, the crooked green bust of a jazz singer blooming from the wildflower meadow. But something about the Hanging Man felt different from this collection. He was from nowhere, for one thing. Just a bunch of odds and ends at a corner stand at the Alameda swap meet. And the dog hated him. Admittedly, she barked at snails and blimps too. She wasn't always the best judge of character. She held grudges against men in hats and old people who looked at her wrong. But to see her standing out in the yard, barking at the Hanging Man as he dangled and swung, brought to mind every ghost story where the dog snarled and bristled before any human knew what was wrong. We couldn't return him if we wanted to, my dad said. The swap meet's not for another month. We paid in cash, my mom said. It's a sunk cost. I didn't have the words for explaining, or just felt too silly doing it. That getting rid of the Hanging Man was more important than cost. He wasn't a defective thing that needed to be brought back to the store. Swinging outside the kitchen window, he was doing exactly what he was supposed to do. It would cost more to keep him than to give him away. What are you afraid will happen? My therapist asked over the phone. Let's put this into words. In my dream that night, the Hanging Man sprouted horns, a rapier of driftwood in his shriveled hand. I armed myself with pruning shears and went to cut him down. He dodged and shook without a breeze. I snapped the shears at that grimace face 3 times and missed. Instead, I cut the cord that hanged him from the orange tree. He didn't clatter, but landed, a stringless puppet, on 2 feet. Thanks.
Thank you, Wesley. You can find the link to Wesley's work in the chat. And next up will be Robert Scatalara. So Scotty says, after driving cross country with some friends in an old 50s colorfully painted school bus, blasting Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young the whole way, we arrived in the Bay Area. A stranger said, "You've got to drive to the top of Mount Tam, smoke a joint, and watch the sunset." We did. I never left. And Scotty will be read by Tony Press, and he shared his first memory as well, a sunny day at Seals Stadium, and Orlando Cepeda sliding home with a winning run. All right, Ton.
Thank you. I'm the lucky person who gets to read Scotty's words tonight. I'll read 3 very small flash fiction pieces. Saw blade. I talk Nina into it. Ed goes along. Neither can figure why I'm still pining over Rita. We have a musical saw band, pass the hat most times in the Mission District, carry around these collapsible garden seats, sit under Rita's window, the saws between our knees, bending and bowing Rita's favorite, head like a hole. Her window's open, and I'm hoping she'll find the sorrowful tones, the sentiment irresistible. But I'm beginning to think she's out till it starts raining my paperbacks. Troopers that we are, we keep playing. And then this shirtless guy with a plethora of angry animal tattoos sticks his head out, says, "Get lost, you crazy freaks," as a hand snakes around his waist and eases him back in. The fingernails painted cayenne pepper red, Rita's favorite go-to shade. We stop and Nina picks up one of the books, Cou's Baudelaire. Can I have it? I nodded and we pack up. Los Guanacos is a couple of streets down, and if the mariachis aren't there, we got a spot. Nina looks at me as we head off. Baudelaire in a reverential clutch. Nothing like a saw, she says, to cut through all the bullshit. Not even Ed Sullivan could save Sundays. It was a lawn party in an upscale neighborhood filled with kids in pointy hats and their parents sipping drinks. I was part of a clown band. We played silly tunes, brassy and loud. I made my trombone sound like a giant farting. A single freckled boy laughed, and that was enough. It seemed so much had slipped away, not suddenly like an avalanche, but one snowflake at a time melting against the pane. I made that sound again, but the freckled kid ran off without noticing. I gazed down at my watch. Had a date later in the evening. A gal from christianmingle.com, find God's match for you. I wasn't at all religious, but I thought, what the hell, I'd hedge my bets. Maybe a divine matchmaker was the ticket. One of the drunken moms winked at me. I did some fancy riffs on my slush pump, then realized the wink was for Harold, the drummer behind me. Harold started beating the piss out of the snare, and she seemed to enjoy that. She spilled wine down the front of her dress and dabbed at it with a party napkin, slowing when she ran it over her breasts. Harold pounded the bass drum like a heartbeat. My father was a lush, and I remembered him on Sundays staring down the barrel of another work week, whiskey running down his shirt, saying once, between a yodeler and a spinning plates act, as we watched the Ed Sullivan variety show on TV, "Not even Sullivan can save Sundays." The freckled kid came back with a girl in a polka dot dress in tow. I giant farted my trombone, and they both looked up, at me this time, and giggled. It was enough. And title story. What are the chances? Let's say the skateboarders were back again, scraping up and down the empty swimming pool next door. There was the sharp, skunky scent of pot in the air, and we were on the deck below, watching the lemons on the tree yellow. Let's say we just got back home and the jewelry was missing. The window jimmied, and that large kitchen knife we kept in the drawer was on the bed. Our bed. That whoever took out stuff didn't need to use it, but held it just in case. It was still there. A shark in the waves of an unmade bed. Let's say I was more than a little annoyed that Camille was taking so frigging long, picking through the aisles at Safeway on a sunny Saturday. And what the hell was this thing about timing and luck anyway? A butcher knife in the hand? In the sheets? In the belly? The neighborhood kids on the other side of the hedges, oblivious, scraping. Let's say cancer never came at Kay Ballinger like a boulder down a mountain, and Joe didn't lose his job. Everything, everything, and he was out there instead of those rowdies, blackening barbecued ribs like he always did on weekends. And his wife Kay was by the pool in that blue sundress, or on an inflatable in the water with a drink, her straw with lipstick at the end of it, our favorite shade of red. How it might have been different with their dog Bruno barking. Let's say that mockingbird was back in the poplars making a fuss with a throat full of stolen music, but I hardly heard it as we stared off, saying we needed to call the police. Needed to talk. One of the rowdies just said, "Fucking A," after some kind of tricky maneuver, banging the hard wheels against the Spanish tiles. Kay left wet butt prints against. I never forgot, just before she got up to dive back in, when the pool, so much, hadn't yet been emptied. Thank you. Thanks, Scotty.
Thank you so much, Scotty. Thank you so much, Tony. You can find Scotty's work in the link in chat. That book is called What Are the Chances? Flash Fictions. Grab a copy. Pass it to your friends. It's the holiday season. Next up, we have Lauren Parker. My head's cut off. Lauren Parker writes, Moving to the Bay Area was like catching up with the horizon and merging completely with a sunset. I drove across the country with all of my belongings in my car and the sensation of setting every book in a line on my new floor, evaluating every dish that didn't survive the trek, and putting the holes in the walls that would hold up the artwork that made the place mine will give me dopamine for the rest of my life. Please welcome Lauren Parker.
Thank you, and thank you for having me back, Noah. So I would like to apologize because technically this poem is not about San Francisco, it's about Portland, but I'm sure you'll forgive me. This is called Hello, Portland. 9 days on the road and you thunder through my body like an injury, tight as a fist. In a bus with the band, I pretend the poems I write will be the songs on the album that does us justice. Check 1, check 1, 2. Hello, Portland. Between the lights and the smoking, I've taken back up, and the snoring of the drummer when he's drunk, and he's always drunk, hey, hey, and the bad food and the booze, you'd think I'd have no time to think of you. But you break through the snatches of time between sets, between cities, between the mattress and the wall of the tour bus I've wedged myself into so I can pretend I'm not sleeping alone. Hello, Cleveland. You're looking mighty fine tonight. Hello, Boise. Hello, Ashland. Hello, copy-pasted town in Indiana, Iowa, the inner meat of California, Nevada, anywhere with a rest stop. Hello, Charlotte, North Carolina. Your letter's off from her name, and I'll try to forgive you. But I've heard such good things about you. Hello, St. Paul. Glad to be pouring out of these speakers for you tonight. And every slurred chord and beat of this drunken drum, hey, hey, is for every single one of you who isn't her. For those of you who are her, this next one is for you. Hello, Philly. We dreamed of love on your bricks. Hello, Portsmouth. She wanted to move there in 12 years. And hello, Knoxville. You're the only town she never touched. You're mine, right, Knoxville? Say you're mine. Say it louder. I can't hear you. 40 days on the road and you sting my lips like a secret, one I can't stop telling. Check 1, check, check 1. So this next one, so I talked about this the last time I was on the show, but I'm going to be very tacky and do it again. I'm working on a collection of speculative poems about David Bowie, specifically a continuation of the Station to Station album, and this is one of the pieces from that. It's called Eulogy for the Milky Way. We buried the Milky Way in red dirt and saliva. It died in shifts, whole stars falling damp at our feet like porch lights going out after midnight, until all that was left was a dark seam of purples and navies in the sky. The small ones were delicate, like leaves settling on the ground, but the larger ones left welts in the dirt. Everyone thinks the desert is sand. It will sift through your hands cleanly. But the American West is dirt and clay and brush, and the stars are buried beneath it. I know, I left them there. I folded them up in my shirt and carried them until my arms gave out, dug until my thumbnail came off, spat the last of the water within me. The only home I had, a sudsing froth of light cresting the sky, is gone, gone, gone. And then my last one is kind of about the Bay Area, in a kind of random way. It's about home ownership and the complicated relationship to real estate I think a lot of us have. So this is called Fixer Upper. You live inside the beautiful house. That is where you live. Windows lidded in shutters, rose bushes blushing on either side, the front stoop wonky as a grin. That is where you live, and it is beautiful. It does not matter that no one in town likes you very much, and the wind blows through your beautiful house, rickety as a cough, and that night seems a little bit darker here. Your house is beautiful, and that is enough. Then there is the rich mahogany baseboards that suck up all the light in the room, so you creep from shadow to shadow, pining for a white wall to rest against like a climbing strand of ivy. The people in town also think your house is beautiful. They do not like you. That is where you live. The roof, the true marvel, terracotta shingles, brassy in the sunlight like curls. The rain beats down on it. You're trapped under a jar. You will always have to replace them with the exact clay from the exact region of Italy because your beautiful house is historic and must be kept up. You keep up your beautiful house. That is where you live. You thought you would be happy when you bought it. You thought it would be enough to roll your chair down its long hallways every day, your laughter filling every open pocket. Your joy would be a white wall to rest against, enough sunlight to keep you stretching and growing. But the sunlight is harder to find, the laughter harder to make. The house has beaten you, this beautiful house. You must keep up. That is where you live. The people in town cannot save you from your beautiful house. It is yours to keep up. That is where you live. They forget about you most of the time unless they pass by your rosy bushes, your clay tiles, reminded that they do not like you but agree your house, the one that darkens at 3 p.m., the one that rattles and shakes, is very beautiful and well kept. You would love it too if you were on the other side of the little gate and the little fence and it were grinning at you with its wonky stoop and bashful shutters. You would think, if I lived in a house so beautiful, I would be so content and happy. The place would hum with my joy. That is what you keep up. But now you know the beautiful house does not grin on the inside, nor you inside it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. The link to Lauren's work is in the chat. Next, we'll have Jane Martin. Jane was born in the French hospital on Gary Street when there was such a place, but she doesn't remember a thing. Her family roots in the city can be traced back to the early 1900s. A former family home still stands in the marina. As the booking manager for 245 Hyde Street Studios, back when it was Wally Heider Recording, she recalls the Grateful Dead always having the best hash. In her collection of microfiction, Tender Cuts, from Vine Leaves Press is available now, and we'll put the link in the chat. All right, Jane.
Hi, thanks everyone. This is just a stellar reading. I'm so happy to be included. I'm going to read a couple of micros. I didn't time them, but I think they're under 6 minutes. The first one is called The Tenderloin. There's usually 2 of us, but it's Christmas Eve and I got nowhere to be. Anyway, she's just a little bit of a thing. Barely 90 pounds from the looks of her. I can roll her onto the gurney. The super found her after complaints of the smell. I don't smell nothing no more. Fucking freezing in here. No rent, no heat, he'd said. Asshole should be charged with murder. But who's gonna complain? It's the Tenderloin. Place is neat as a pin. Something my mom used to always say, neat as a pin. Still I know what that means. Mom would have been about her age if the cancer hadn't gotten her. Not much in the fridge. Lettuce, brown, wilting. One of those single server cups of ice cream in the freezer. Ben & Jerry's, Cherry Garcia. I find a spoon. I was a deadhead, she said. Follow them everywhere. I dip the spoon into the ice cream, raise it to my lips. You don't mind, do you? Oh, heavens, no. No reason for it to go to waste. Sorry to inconvenience you on Christmas Eve. I thought I'd be found before now. People who say those who have passed are dead and gone don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Where's your family? I ask. Why, they're all around, just waiting. Don't you see them? The room swells with Christmas music, and children sing, hark the herald angels sing, and dance around a brightly lit tree. Grown-ups sip eggnog by a mantel hung with stockings with the names Charlie, Susie, Mary. And there in the middle of the room she stands, looking vibrantly alive, her arms outstretched toward me. You're welcome to join us. It wasn't the first time I'd been made such an offer, and I can't say I wasn't tempted. I toss the empty ice cream container into the garbage and walk over to the lifeless form on the floor. I'll take good care of you, I say, and gently place the sheet over her unseen, clear blue eyes. Next piece is called The Wedding Night, and it's from the collection. Her knee slammed in the corner of the glass-covered night table as she struggled to sit up, the sharp pains serving to awaken her senses. Outside, foghorns called to each other across the bay like giant beasts in search of their mate, while inside, her bare foot brushed against the empty bottle of Jose Cuervo that had transported her from her own. Her eyes began to focus, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings until her gaze fell upon the discarded heap of satin and white lace lying on the floor, causing a swell of panic to encase her in its grip once again. The pounding of the church organ, the suffocating scent of 1,000 gardenias, the eyes, so many eyes, bearing down upon her every step. From behind, she felt him stir, his arms slowly encircle her like a noose. This one is going to lighten the mood a little bit, I hope. It's called Last Minute Shopper. Christmas Eve, and the Stonestown parking lot is packed. I screech to a halt in a candy-capped space because screw it, a mental breakdown should count. His kids were supposed to be with his ex for Christmas until Mom hightailed it to Panama at the last minute with her 24-year-old Latin boyfriend. I sprint for Target. A woman dressed in Victorian chic with a bell and a kettle steps in front of me. Salvation Army, Goodwill, Jews for Jesus, who the hell knows? They're everywhere. I weave and dodge, but can't shake her. In my pocket, I find a crumpled dollar with an old lifesaver stuck to it and shove it in her kettle. Then I leap for the door. Inside the store is scorching hot from bodies packed tight, shoving and grabbing and shoving. God rest ye merry gentlemen, warped from where garbles on a loop over the sound system. Shelves are bare, I grab what I can. Pantyhose for the 6-year-old, sure, why not? A 6-pack of eau de toilette for the teenager because toilet water sounds so much better in French. Then I spot it. The last Barbie stove. I can still save myself. My hands are not the only ones to grab on. A barbarous woman with facial hair growls at me. I land a well-aimed kick to her crotch and it's mine. Outside the store, I run for the car. Bell kettle lady is hot on my tail. The bitch must work on commission. She's relentless with that fucking bell, and I fumble for keys that have gone missing. But no, there they are, dangling in the ignition, the car safely secured by auto lock. I think I see a smirk on bell kettle lady's face. I pull a 2-inch pocket knife from my purse, flip it open under her nose. The nail file, because I'm determined, not crazy. But it's enough. She agrees to drive me to her house by way of the ATM, where I agree to draw out my limit for the day. And if there's time, I'll do one more short one. This is called Alternate Holidays and Weekends. The gingerbread house sat upon the dining room table, the only vestige of holiday cheer. Without her children for Christmas this year, Elf on the Shelf and Treetop Angel remained boxed away in the attic. Sometimes she could hear them through the air vents, whispering of holidays past when they had all still been a family. Each morning she'd call her children to breakfast before remembering their absence, and when she could no longer bear the loneliness, she took refuge inside the cozy cookie dough home. There, tiny gumdrop boys and girls sat on her lap, begging her to read Rudolph one more time. In the corner, a licorice Labrador curled up in a matchbox. Her ex had been allergic to dogs. She had only to lick the walls for nourishment and slumbered on a marshmallow mattress drunk on the aroma of sweet molasses. When the children returned from their father's house, they would wonder where she'd gone, would peek into the gingerbread house and call for her to come out. But she had new children now, with toothpicks for legs that would never leave her. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jane. That was amazing. I would just
Thank
like
you.
to say that your mood lightening piece was about a woman who pulled a knife on someone else in the parking lot of a store, which that lightens my mood, but amazing. Thank you so much. You can find Jane Martin's collection, Tender Cuts from Vine Leaves Press, in the chat link. Thank you so much.
Thank
Next
you.
up, we have Elizabeth Gonzalez James, who I'm very excited about, as always. Elizabeth writes, I was 7 years old, living in Texas, watching the '89 World Series on TV with my mom. They had to cut the broadcast because there was a big earthquake, and I remember thinking, who on earth would want to live in California? Please welcome Elizabeth Gonzalez James.
Hi, everybody. Noah, thank you so much. And thank you to the San Franciscan Magazine. I'm really excited to be here. And I just wanted to show you guys my Christmas sweater, my Grumpy Cat sweater. I normally get to spread my grumpy Christmas cheer throughout Oakland, where I live. But this year I can't leave my house, so I'm sharing it with you guys. I'm going to read an excerpt from my novel, Mona at Sea. It's the year's 2009. It's the Great Recession. Mona is 9 months out of college, and the job she had waiting for her after graduation has disappeared. And we meet her at a job seekers seminar that's just wrapping up. When we're finished, I grab my purse and try to exit before anyone can speak to me, but I'm blocked by the other job seekers lingering to chat. In my haste to leave, I drop my keys, and when I come back up, Paulette is there, holding her binder to her chest like a life preserver and giving me a warm, expectant look. So, what did you think? Are you going to join us next week? Yes, for sure. It was great. I definitely learned a lot. Paulette lets out a big breath like she'd been worried. I'm so glad. This is such a lonely process. It's good to be around other people who are going through it with you. I'm nodding, one eye on the sunlight streaming through a glass door. I'm about to thank her and make my escape when the light disappears behind Chasen, his arms folded and a smirk brightening his face, goatee to eyebrows. Sad millennial, he says, firing 2 finger guns at me. You're sad millennial, aren't you? He punctuates his question by sucking saliva through the tongue ring and getting too much at the back of his throat, coughs into the crook of his elbow. My face is so hot, I think it must be glowing. I don't know you, I say, trying to avoid eye contact. What's sad millennial? Paulette asks. Chasen's face brightens more. Dude, me and my boy watched that video 100 times, and the auto-tune version, that was my ringtone. He pitches his voice up and sings poorly. It's not fair, I ate my veggies. This is something on the internet? You gotta look that shit. Chasen catches himself before a disapproving glance from Paulette. You gotta look it up. Bannerman, this is the company that Mona was supposed to work for. Bannerman had been cagey about a start date, a move I'd assumed was some abstruse hazing ritual inflicted on the new class of junior analysts. I'd been out of town with my parents, one last jaunt to Puerto Penasco to see the dolphins, and when we got back to Tucson, there was an email from HR demanding I be in New York the following morning. I don't remember packing. I don't remember how much my parents had to pay for a last-minute ticket, or what Ashton Kutcher rom-com played on the in-flight headrest screens. I don't remember the cab ride to Bannerman's Wall Street headquarters, other than the red wall of brake lights and car horns screeching infinitely before us. All I know is that the front doors were locked, the side doors were locked, the back doors were locked, and by the time I woke up and took a look around me, I realized I was surrounded by well-dressed people hugging cardboard boxes and potted plants while they cried and cussed and smoked like it was some great unplanned funeral. Then there was this woman in a pink leather jacket and a small, mean face, like a terrier. She practically kissed my lips with a microphone, a strong, astringent funk like mouthwash coming off its foam head. A black-framed camera floated over her shoulder. Today was supposed to be your first day at Bannerman. You've got your suitcases. You must have just come from the airport. I hope you won't mind me saying, but you look young. This may have been your first job out of college. Coming here and finding out you no longer have a job. How does it feel? What's going through your head right now? It's Sucks, I said, blinking far too many times. I remember I couldn't look straight into the lens. The reporter slit her eyes, unimpressed with my brevity. Can you elaborate? I opened and closed my mouth a few times, trying to condense a brewing 10-minute polemic into a few sentences. I must have packed the breathing exercises I used to hold back my anxiety inside my bag with my pinstriped pants, because as I began to speak, I was aware that I was not taking in air, that the words were getting squeezed out in one long terminal gasp. It's not fair. I worked really hard to get this job. I was valedictorian. I was president of the investment club. I did everything right, you know, everything. I said no to drugs. I stayed in school. I got straight A's and ate my veggies. And now I just want my job. I had 7 interviews to get this job. I beat out I don't know how many people. You know, I'm the first person Bannerman hired from Arizona in 10 years. I'm probably the only Latina in the new analyst class because you know all those investment banks are old boys clubs. I came all the way out from Tucson. My plane landed this morning. I don't have anywhere to stay. I don't know anyone in New York. I've got everything I own in these 2 suitcases. And I just, halfway through my speech, I'd felt my throat tightening. And even though I'd fought off the tears until then, they finally sputtered out of me as the horrible woman pushed the microphone closer, making sure no pathos went unfilmed. I don't know what to do, I sobbed. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. The annex room has almost cleared. Dust motes pirouette in the morning sunshine. My face must look severe because now Chasen clears his throat and looks down at the carpet. For real, that sucks though. Did you get any money from the video? Yeah, I copyrighted it. What do you think? That's messed up, but hey, and Chasen cuffs me lightly on the shoulder like we're friends. Someone will do something else stupid and pretty soon no one will remember you. There's always someone more screwed up than you. Thanks, I guess. Chasen moves off and Paulette gives me a small, encouraging smile that feels confidential, only for me. Do you know I saw Monica Lewinsky on TV? She asks quietly. Remember her? I didn't know this, but she was only 24 when all that happened. Can you imagine? Yeah, that's a lot. She was the only thing people talked about. It seemed like years, didn't it? And in all that time, the story was the same over and over. That homewrecker, that blue dress, how could she? Nobody ever bothered to look at it a different way, that here's this young woman and the most powerful man in the country, that maybe there was something else we weren't seeing. How did the reporter say it? Something like, what is it like to be the biggest punchline in the world? My eyes hurt, and I realized I've stopped blinking. I'd underestimated her with the breathe sign, but Christ, this lady is good. Do you have a journal? Paulette asks. It might help to write down what you're going through. You might not ever share it with anyone, and that's fine, but there's something about getting things down on paper that really helps you see the whole story, even if you're the only one reading it. I haven't, but thanks. That's a good, I'll think about it, definitely. Paulette looks past me through the door. It's a beautiful day, she says, still smiling. There's that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Elizabeth's book, Mona at Sea, comes out next March. I think next March.
July.
You should go, and I think you can pre-order it, right? No.
You can pre-order it now.
And you should. That is the cover behind her as well, which is amazing product placement. I love it. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Tomas Muniz. Tomas writes in terms of the first memory they had of the Bay Area. True story. In 1991, in a seedy motel room on Isadora Duncan Lane in downtown San Francisco, holding our 6-month-old child, I asked my lover to marry me. Please welcome Tomas Muniz.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. This is an excerpt of a short story that Noah requested. It's called All True Metalheads. Tonight's my last night drinking, and it's my birthday. I'm meeting my best friend, Metal Matt, at Bender's on 19th and Van Ness. I enter and hear the familiar melodic sound of Black Sabbath, a kind of divinity, a beautiful darkness. I decide to splurge on Pliny the Elder, which is, in its own way, something divine. Flowery, citrusy, and malty sweet. I grin and ask for a Pliny and slap down $7. The bartender smiles and tells me, it's 8. I only have 8. 7 for the beer, 1 for the tip. Metal Matt promised to sport me drinks for the rest of the night to cheer me up, to kick off my sobriety in the right way. Plus, I'm fucking broke. Now I'm an asshole. the guy who's not going to leave a tip. I say, here's 8. When my friend comes, I'll tip you. Right, they say, and walk away. I hurry to the outdoor patio to get out of sight. It's the end of the longest day of the year and 95 degrees in San Francisco. Everyone sitting at one big table made of an old wooden door is familiar with each other. I watch them pass a pack of smokes around. There's 3 women and 2 men. The men all have leather motorcycle vests on and tight black denim shorts, fringe dangling down, tickling thighs that appear taut and tan. The women lean back in their chairs, wearing t-shirts with the sides cut out of them. I try not to stare at their unshaved armpits and the lovely way their whole body moves as they laugh and blow smoke directly into each other's smiling faces like it's an act of love. I completely ignored these 2 other dudes sitting in the corner sharing a bowl. One's wearing a Hardly Strictly Bluegrass shirt with gray sweatpants, and the other's wearing khaki pants and what might be the matching top to the gray sweatpants. But then the dude with the shirt says to me, "Hey, you gotta love Pliny." I'm speechless. I look at my beer, brown, a bit reddish with a small head of foam. I ask, how do you know it's Pliny and not one of the other 30 beers they got here? Faith, my friend, nothing but faith, he says, and he turns away. I look to the sky, dull now with night coming. I'm ready to go to Ocean Beach, which I expressed must be our final destination of the evening. Metal Matt used the word kismet when I told him about the plan on the phone earlier. I asked, what the fuck is kismet? He said it means like fate or destiny. It means everything led you to be in this place with this opportunity. I said, a birthday is hardly an opportunity. He scoffed loudly like I was ridiculous. I asked, and what language is that? He said Yiddish or Hebrew, I think. I don't know. I'm not Jewish, but I am one spiritual motherfucker. I asked, you are? Half in jest, half in disbelief. He answered me, all true metalheads are. Remember that. And like a miracle, Metal Matt enters the patio holding 2 PBR tall boys like they're mana. He states loudly, drink up and let's go get nude and jump in the ocean. Metal Matt says hello to everyone at the table like they're apostles. And I hear one say, yeah, the beach sounds like a good idea on a night like this. Metal Matt says, it is. It's a special night. It's my best friend's birthday. They all look at me, the men, the women, Metal Matt, the 2 dudes, and then they all yell, happy birthday. Their voices, a jangle of sound. Metal Matt makes his way to me and hands me a beer. We crack them open and clank cans and cheers each other as white foam flicks onto my sleeve. He shows me a 5th of Makers from his back pocket and says, I'm saving on beer so we can take a lift to the beach. I say, wow, a sentence I never imagined coming from your mouth. He says, well, yeah, who thought that Metallica would play a Super Bowl party? We're in the lift. Metal Matt puts his hand on my hand and he looks at me. He has long brown hair, perfectly parted in the middle. He takes care of it. We were roommates for years, and the amount of money he spent on hair products was impressive. Shampoos, hair conditioners, oil, rehydrating creams. His beard is orange and blonde, and he has a gray streak in the center. If I were religious, I'd say he looked like a monk or a saint. He says, happy 33rd birthday. I say, my Jesus year. He says, but you've got the wisdom that Jesus didn't. I say, I do? Please enlighten me. What is this knowledge you speak of? He says, the wisdom that the only person you can save is yourself. I put my hand on his hand and squeeze it. The Lyft driver is playing Live 105, and on comes Metallica's Nothing Else Matters. It's somber and slow and picks up and crunches in that perfect power ballad kind of way. I say, is this Kismet? He says, no, this is just eerie as fuck. When we get to the beach, we walk hand in hand to the moment the dry and wet becomes wet. We strip naked. People gather and sit in circles here and there. Some have fires, some play music, nothing I recognize. At first, I worry that people watch me, that my belly bounces like a beach ball, that my dick hides away in my pubic hair. Metal Matt says, listen, we're going to sprint into the water. I say, not too far, there's riptides. He says there always are. He says, we are going to yell and scream the entire length of this beach. I want you to let out 33 years of fear and shame and addiction and guilt. Just let it go. I say, oh, just like that. That should be easy. He says, nope. Easy would be staying right here on the shore. This is going to be hard. He then hustles back to his jeans. He bends over, and I see the glow of his ass cheeks in the darkness between. He returns holding the bottle. He opens it and takes a swig. He hands it to me. I finish it and hand it back. He then makes a big motion to throw the bottle like he could give a fuck. He yells to someone behind me, my shoulder, relax, I'm gonna pick it up in a second. He looks at me, fucking liberals. We hug, his warm chest and belly pressing into mine. We turn to face the ocean. I hear him breathe in deeply and then growl, low and guttural, picking up intensity and sounding more real than any metal or hardcore band, as beautiful as early Neurosis or Metallica or any damn Sabbath album pre-Ronnie James Dio. I join in, and there is no harmony, no syncopation, just long, drawn-out noise, unbroken and off-key, and then we run. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Tomas, that was amazing. Thank you. And you can find his debut novel on his website, Big Familia. And next up is Grant Faulkner. Grant says, my first memory of San Francisco is drinking a cup of coffee in La Boheme. I was visiting my brother during spring break, and La Boheme was just down the street from his apartment. It was full of people playing guitars and singing, flirting, writing, reading, playing chess, pondering suicide, pondering revolutions, drawing on sketch pads, selling drugs. Full of a fantastic swirl of life that is seldom seen these days. I knew right away that I wanted to live in San Francisco.
Thanks, Erica, and thanks to you and Jane for the wonderful edition of the San Franciscan. It's really beautiful. And thanks, Noah, for hosting the wonderful reading series. It's been great listening to all the great authors tonight. I thought the invitation to read a piece that is about San Francisco very interesting, because I lived here pretty much since I moved, went to La Boheme years ago, most of my adult life. And I realized that I barely have any stories that really take place in San Francisco. And then I realized while I was looking for one that I actually don't name San Francisco in the stories that are about San Francisco. So they're only implicitly about San Francisco. I don't know why that is. But this one kind of picks up from that cafe scene, and it's part of a collection called All the Comfort Sin Can Provide that's coming out with Black Lawrence Press next July. So this is a short. Everything I'm reading tonight is flash, so it's super short. So this one's called Mademoiselle in the Coffee Shop. She is the kind of person you look at and then keep looking at because you can't quite figure her out, how she fits together, leg bone to hip bone. You look into the glints of her dark, beautiful eyes and you listen to her speak, her voice smooth like a summer lake, yet laced with shits and fucks. And although her face has an elegance like an antique porcelain vase, and she smiles like she's the one who knows what happiness is, she walks with a clunky gait, the girl who never won the race in gym class, the girl who never had a crush on the high school quarterback. Her wrists are tiny, delicate, her fingers long and slim, the kind of fingers that demand the kind of white gloves Audrey Hepburn wore. She's never had reason to ponder the existence of God. She laughs with disdain when someone invites her to a yoga class. She's kissed men on a dare, but she prefers to stay at home and paint her fingernails and sew crazy clothes with her girlfriends. I'm a rag doll, she says. She could drive in a car forever, stop in every thrift store in every small town to search for old vintage dresses. She loves to dress up in her tattered mink scarf and smoke cigarettes in a silver cigarette holder all by herself in her room. Derrida bored the fuck out of her in college, and then college bored the fuck out of her in college. She draws smiley faces on napkins when she's bored, just like she did in the 3rd grade. She's afraid of snakes. She has a bottle of absinthe in her kitchen cupboard. She's always the first to kiss, but never says I love you until she hears it. You know this. You know it like you know that most people riding a bus at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning regret the times they didn't sin more than the times they did. You know it like you know that only a few people are able to say what they truly want, and even fewer are able to think it. Somehow the words, the wish collide. The escape hatch gets locked, water gushes into the hull. There's so much more to know, and you'll never know it, the details. How her leg bone connects to her hip bone, how she kisses a man for the first time, or how she kisses a man for the last time. And you don't know why it is that you'll remember her years from now, as if you'd lived a sort of life together, tasted wine on her mouth, heard her first deep breaths of sleep. She was just there in the coffee shop every morning before you got on the bus with the others. You wore a suit and tie, and she never looked at you. It's funny to see the quiet laughter, or the quiet applause, sorry, maybe laughter, who knows. I'm going to read a few stories from this collection called Fissures. Each story in this is exactly 100 words long, and that's kind of one of my things with flash fiction. My co-founder and co-editor of 100wordstory.org, Lynn Mundell, is here, or I saw her earlier tonight, so it's wonderful to see her. And I'm really impressed because I think about 7 or 8 of the attendees have published 100-word stories. So I'm not going to name them all, but if anybody wants to mention that you've been publishing a 100-word story in chat, or provide the link to your story, that'd be great. And so this is 100-word stories. Scotty has also published a collection of 100-word stories as well. And I'm reading within this, most of them are independent stories. I mean, they all are, but there are about 20 to 25 about these two characters, Gerard and Celeste. So I'm going to read 3 of them. And the reason I'm doing that is because I've actually taken these characters and written a novel about them. I just finished the novel. I think of it as a flash novel, so it's got some flash aesthetic to it. And but I didn't place this. I think they were living in San Francisco when I wrote this, but the novel's placed in New York. So I think it's very San Franciscan to move from San Francisco to New York. So that's the theme there. So this first one's called For the Love of Children. After he had children, Gerard saw each person as another's son or daughter. The pinch of worry in a mother's eyes just after midnight. The dreadful wait until the front door creaked open once again. Safety, or was it? He wanted to tell Celeste he touched her with such care, even as they lay in the strewn sheets of another cheap hotel room. He'd asked a friend to watch his children to be with her. Right then they might be crossing a street without anyone holding their hands. Will you tie my hands behind my back, she asked. He did so gently. Next one's called The Second Hand. Celeste wore a longing for death tightly across her forehead. She knew that each of their acts, no matter how distant in the mind, ended in a kind of murder or its kissing cousin, suicide. I trust you like a wolf I raised from a pup, Gerard said. In his arms, she felt as if she lived on the equator, every hour motionless, vast, hot. The clock ticked on the timelessness, except it didn't. She made sure to say she had to go before he did. She trusted him like a cardinal trusts a blue jay. I'm a robin, he said. And then the last of the trio, Souvenir. When Celeste thought of Gerard late at night, she emailed him tracks of yearning, sexy songs. Sorry to rape your ears, she wrote. She enjoyed thinking of her songs popping up on his iPod years later as he sat in his living room with his wife. I love this song, his wife would say. Where did you get it? She imagined Gerard's eyes blinking, then gazing off into a memory of her, an ornery whiff of the past. True lovers are expert in constructing penitentiaries. She'd hammer a nail into his hands for eternity, even as she listened to static. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you so much, Grant. That was amazing. Grant has a new collection coming out next year from Black Lawrence Press. Look out for it. And then Grant has a ton of stuff on the internet. You can just search Grant and find a million good things, and you should.
You bet, thanks.
Absolutely. That's all we got this evening. I'm going to unmute us all briefly so we can cheer for the people who read. So unmuted. We're unmuted. Cheers. Yes. All right. Woo! All right.
Yay!
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And we're muted again. I want to say thank you so much to Erica Messner and the San Franciscan for joining us in this shit show of an evening. Not this evening particularly, but just our entire thing as usual. You should go out and buy the San Franciscan. You should get a gift subscription for your family and your friends. It really is a great magazine. And I really, really appreciate Erica coming out tonight. And Jane Martin also picked all the flash fiction writers for the San Franciscan. So thank you to Jane as well. Thank you to all the readers. What a fucking night, right? Come on. Good stuff. Good stuff. And thank you to you, all of you. This was a nice big show on a Thursday night. And there's a million fucking places you could have been in the universe and you came here. And I'm really thankful for that. So this is our last show of the year. So happy holidays if you do that. If not, we'll see you in 2021 if something doesn't destroy the earth before then. So bye. See you soon. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Bye, all.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you so much.
Everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks. Bye. Nice seeing you. See you soon. Bye.
This is one of the best readings I've ever been to.
Thanks, Jane.
It was, really. Everybody was just outstanding, and the crowd was great. It was really, really fun.
It's a nice, warm crowd.
It was. It was. It was worth the shower and the makeup. I don't do that often, so, you know.
Yeah, I don't do that for this show.
It was worth the personal hygiene.
That's good. I'm glad. That's really the most. That's the best compliment we can get. Is that it's worth personal hygiene. I put on a collared shirt for the night, so that happens. It was the one time a week I do that.
Well, I hope you'll do more of these. I hope this will become a regular event between the San Franciscan and the Racket, because it was.
Happening.
Yeah, I can
would
see
love
that.
it.
We would love to.
Yeah.
And until
Yeah.
then, Noah
Yeah.
does the Racket reading
Yeah.
very frequently, starting again in 2020 or 2021, right, Noah?
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna do it next year. I don't know if we're gonna do weekly again, but we'll do the weekly. It's a lot of weeklies. But I think we'll do probably either monthly or bi-weekly. I don't know.
Perfect.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's a good time. So we got some different ideas of stuff to do, and by we I mean myself. It's just me.
Erica, how long has the San Franciscan been around?
Well, we just published our 3rd issue. We've been around our first issue came out about a year ago.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna get a subscription. I'm excited.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I still have dinner to eat. So
I'm gonna go eat. It's
thank you
been
again
fun.
so much. Thank you all the readers. Seriously, thank you so much. Tomas just left. I was about to say, literally, that book that Tomas read from is so great. The last 2 things he's written, All Friends Are Necessary and Big Familia, amazing. Really fantastic.
Oh, I loved it. I loved
Is
it.
what he read from, is that in the book that's out already, or is that from a forthcoming book?
That one is from All Friends Are Necessary, which was a part of this 3-piece like novella series that him and 2 other writers put out for, I want to say Acre. He's already gone. It's great. That one's already out. And then he released another piece that got nominated for the Penn Faulkner Award called Big Familia. Also, absolutely fantastic. He really Tomas has this beautiful, warm voice where everything he reads feels like it's autobiographical, but it's not. It's just he just embodies his characters in this beautiful way, and I highly recommend both. Big Familia was, I think, my #1 book of last year, so you should go read it. That's all I got.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great performer. Terrific performer.
He really is.
Yeah,
He really is.
It was fun.
He's a good guy.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Stay safe. Stay well.
Excellent. Thank you, Erica Messner. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Noah Sanders.
Bye-bye.